Welcome back to Without Shortcuts. Today we're going to take a little bit of a bigger swing. We're going to step things up a notch. And what we're going to do is try and make a bread pudding without shortcuts. Now in order to make a bread pudding without shortcuts, first you need bread.
Right, and now when you're making bread pudding, you can use a lot of different types of bread. You could use a challah bread, you could use French bread, you could even use just a plain white sandwich loaf if you wanted to. For our bread pudding today, we're going to go ahead and use brioche. It's a real light, airy bread. It's a little bit sweet. It's a real versatile bread. You know, you can make rolls out of it. You can make hamburger buns, cinnamon rolls, French toast, and in this case today, bread pudding.
Now, the downside to using brioche for our bread pudding is the fact that it is a little bit more technical of a bread. And as we've said before, and we will certainly say again, we know not everybody's lucky enough to have a stand mixer to do some of this work in, but for this particular recipe, you're really going to want to have a stand mixer. Right. This is a lot of effort. It's a really wet, sticky, kind of messy dough. And as you'll see when we get to the kneading process and really start putting this thing together, it would just be too much work to do it by hand, realistically speaking. So if you have a stand mixer or if you have access to one and you want to make this recipe, absolutely make that a priority for this.
100%.
That being said, we kind of have everything laid out and ready to go. So let's get started on this.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bloom our yeast. So we've got some warm milk. Now remember, you don't want that over 120 degrees because again, that'll kill off your yeast. So we've got some warm milk, a little bit of honey, and then a packet of yeast that's going to go in there. We're going to mix that up. And then we'll let that sit for about 10 minutes or so until the yeast gets all nice and foamy and bubbly.
All right, that's mixing up, getting all happy. Once that's ready, we're gonna let that sit so that it can prepare. And the next step is we're gonna get some eggs ready so that we can put those in our mixing bowl and get that started. I'm gonna start with just 5 eggs, just right out of the shell, into the bowl, nothing special about it.
And then in addition to the 5 whole eggs, this is an enriched dough. So it's gonna be a really, again, wet, sticky, very rich dough. So we're also gonna throw in 1 egg yolk. So I'm gonna separate this out.
Okay, once we've got those out, we're gonna go ahead and just get a little bit of whiskey business going on and mix those up.
Our yeast is ready to go. It's nice and bubbly, foamy, excited, like Doug likes to say. So that's gonna go into our mixer bowl here, along with our eggs. And we're just gonna give that a quick mix. Okay, those are mixed together. So we're gonna go ahead and put in our flour and sugar. And you can just add those all at once. And then we've got just a little bit of vanilla that's going to go in there. All right. Mix those together. Okay, so that's come together into a shaggy dough. We're going to go ahead and put this on the mixer now with the dough hook and get the kneading process started. So this is going to run for 2 to 3 minutes.
So those ingredients have worked through the mixer for 2-3 minutes, somewhere in there, and we're ready to start incorporating some of the butter into this dough. Now the trick on the butter is to make sure that it's at the right temperature. You want it to be soft and pliable so that it can incorporate into the dough as you blend it, but you don't want it to be melted because if you add all that in, you're going to end up with just an oil spill in your dough.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to divide the butter we've got here roughly in half. So we've got 4 equal pieces plus this extra little 2 tablespoons that we've got. So that's going to go into the mixer 1 piece at a time. Like Doug said, you're going to go ahead and let it fully incorporate before you add the next one. And as you're adding each lump of butter there, go ahead and stop the mixer, give it a good scrape down the sides, across the bottom, just to make sure that everything is nice and happy, getting all mixed together. That's the last time we're going to stop the mixer until this is done. Once this last chunk of butter gets incorporated fully into the dough, go ahead and turn the mixer up to medium speed, and then we're just going to let it run until the dough starts to pull away from the sides of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl. What you're looking for is a dough that's smooth. It's still going to be a little tacky, but it's not going to be real sticky. So that's what you're looking for. All right, so as you saw, our dough has started to pull away from the sides and the bottom of the bowl. It's tacky, but it's not sticky, so it's ready to go. This has been in the mixer for about 17 minutes. When you make yours, depending on temperature, humidity, elevation, all those different things, yours may take a little more time, it may take a little less time, but this way you know what you're looking for, so you'll know when it's ready to come out.
So this is coming out just onto a lightly floured work surface. Brian's going to knead it a few times, kind of roll it into a nice little ball shape so that it's ready to go into the proofing container. Now the proofing container just has a little bit of vegetable oil, and we're going to put this in there and put this in the refrigerator covered and let it sit overnight. Now like we said, this is kind of a process of love and you have to be dedicated to make this, but by taking the time to knead it, by taking the time to put it in and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, that's going to allow it to really develop that nice sweet flavor as well as that airy light texture that brioche is known for, that's going to make our bread pudding so delicious in the end. So this is ready. We're going to throw that in the refrigerator and just let it sit.
2,000 years later.
We made a batch of dough last night just to make sure we could do this efficiently. So this has been in the refrigerator sitting overnight for probably around 12 hours. It's fermented, it's proofed the initial time, and it's ready to go.
All right, so we're gonna take this, and we've got enough here for 2 loaves of bread. So we're gonna just take it out of our container here, and I'm gonna weigh it so that when we split it in half, we can weigh the halves out and make sure we've got 2 equal sized loaves.
So our dough weighs in at 1.16 kilograms.
My cruiser weighs 16,000 kilograms.
All right, so we'll turn this out onto the counter. Then I'm going to split this roughly in half, and we'll weigh it out and see how close I get.
Really close.
That's pretty dead on. I like it.
Nice work.
Okay, so we've got our 2 batches of dough here. There's a few different ways that you can shape brioche. Today we're just going to shape it into a couple of standard loaves. So I'm just going to flatten it out, kind of roll it up, and then we'll put it into our pans here.
And our pans are just prepared with butter, and then we've sprinkled some flour across it, just to make sure that these don't stick as much as possible.
All right. Put a little bit more flour on the counter here. So those are going to sit in the pans and proof for about 2 hours until they are doubled in size.
Now, if you have a proofing oven where you can get it nice and warm, that's great. If not, just put these in a warm place where the temperature will stay, you know, as warm as you can get them, like above 80 degrees, and that'll be the optimum place, and it'll accelerate that rise and make sure it doesn't take all night to get them to double in size.
All right, so our loaves are almost doubled in size, so we're going to go ahead and make sure we get our oven preheated. So So for the brioche that we're making today, we're going to preheat to 325 degrees.
Our bread is proofed and ready to go. All we're gonna do is we took an egg, put it in a bowl, mixed it up nicely. We're gonna use that as just an egg wash over the top. This is gonna give us a nice color, a nice little sheen, make everything look good when it comes out of the oven. And other than that, this is ready to go. We're gonna bake it and see what we have.
Okay, so the bread's egg washed. We're gonna go ahead and stick these into our oven for 35 to 45 minutes. You wanna cook them to an internal temperature of about 190 degrees. Our brioche is out of the oven. We're gonna go ahead and let these sit in the pans for about 10 minutes just to kind of finish setting up, and then we'll take them out of the pans and cool them on the rack until they come down to room temperature.
Now, normally after we got these cooled down and out of the pans and ready to go, we do a nice little cross-sectional and display them and a little tasting profile. But these, as we stated at the beginning, are actually reserved for a very special purpose, which is making bread pudding. So, if you want to see exactly what we have, go ahead and hit that link, check that video out, and you'll see exactly what we've created and what it looks like inside.
So, until next time, tag us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, leave us a comment, and let us know how this comes out for you, and skip the shortcuts.
We'll see you again. Thanks.